We do that through local groups, local community groups, and we try through those interventions to increase the capacity of those local groups. We dream, and it can be a dream, that some of these leaders of some of these amazing groups, one of which you will hear from today, will be one of tomorrow's leaders. We have measurably impacted the lives of over 200,000 individuals in our almost 17 years of it. That is the essence of Healing Across the Divides. We recognize that there is an asymmetry between Israelis and Palestinians. Israelis are a first world country, like the United States. Palestinians and living in the Palestinian territories, country under military occupation. So there is no equivalence between the two. At the same time, there are marginalized individuals on both sides. And the theory of change is that by bringing them together, whichever way we can, and by improving the capacity of the local groups, that can be what we call an effort of peace building through health. But at a minimum, what we aim to see is measurable improvement in health, because all human beings desire health. From an overall geopolitical perspective, I've already made some remark on the equivalence or the lack of equivalence between the Israeli and Palestinian sides. I do want to emphasize that from my perspective and from the perspective of the staff and Healing Across the Divides, right now, as I'm sure all of you are aware, the United States is very much focused on what's going on in the United States, possibly to some extent that some other external issues like Iran and Russia, but the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is up on the agenda. At the same time, I do want to highlight that there is an opportunity because there has been some winds of change, and specifically, there are funds that are going to be available through the U.S. Agency of International Development to fund initiatives that look at some aspects of peace building through health, as I've discussed it. So that's my comment with respect to the geopolitical situation. My third comment pertains to today's event itself, and I'm so pleased, and we're so lucky to have all of you on the line. And what we'll be doing is I'll be very shortly introducing the Israel representative of Healing Across the Divides. She will briefly introduce herself, then hand it over to our Palestinian representative, who will discuss her work, and then we will have the main presenter, which is one of the grantees, which is the Yes Theater. Nihad Fatah, who's our Palestinian representative, and I will field questions. If you have questions, and I hope many of you will have questions, we have a chat box. Please include any and all questions that you might have as much as possible to the work that we're doing, but we'll try our best to address as many of the questions as possible. Lastly, we are very lucky today to have on the line, on the Zoom, Aziz Abu Sarah. Aziz Abu Sarah, I'll introduce more formally, is the tour operator for the study tour that Healing Across the Divides utilizes every year. As my wife says, I'm the lucky one to be doing this work. And I would like to now introduce Margaret Ophir Gutler, who's one of the wonderful people that I'm lucky to know through this work. And she is the Israel representative of Healing Across the Divides. She will briefly introduce herself and then introduce Nihad Fatah. Margaret?
Hello, and good evening to my neighbors in the Middle East and to the other people from other parts of the world. I think it's good morning or good noon. So I'm really happy to be the Israeli representative of Healing Across the Divides. At the moment, I'm working with two organizations. One is working with Bedouin, as Norbert mentioned. We are first world, kind of. state, but still we have really marginalized communities, such the Bedouin in the unrecognized villages in the Negev, which lack in basic infrastructure. So we work together with them and a Jewish community, which is also part of more marginalized community because they still a very far away periphery. And we work toward a healthier diet of young kids and their mothers and fathers. And at the same time, we work to bring them together to work and to cooperate and to build their own relationships. So it's a 3-year project that we're just starting the 3rd year now. And it's although we have COVID and lots of challenges, it's going very well. In addition, we work with a refugee asylum seeker organization of women, which has gone through a very traumatic way on their way to Israel. And the organization is women only, and they got their therapy within group therapy and individual therapy. And in addition, they do craft, which is a healing process by itself, and sell these crafts. So it's a way of earn their salary. So they also have their income and the therapy, and it's an amazing combination. And also artwork, which is presented in museums around the world at the moment. And hopefully we will have the 3rd organization very soon. So probably we'll hear about that in our next webinar or so. I myself, in addition to working with Healing Across the Divide, working as a research fellow in the medical faculty of Bar Ilan in Sfat. I live in really close to the Lebanese border in Israel, in a kibbutz. And I'm really happy to introduce Nihad Fatah, my Palestinian colleague, which is doing amazing work with our Palestinian organization. And of course, she will tell everything about her job.
Yeah,
hi, everybody. Sorry, that I know. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Marguerite, first of all, and I'm saying hi, but I'm going to get off video because the internet here is not that strong, and so I don't want to have it cut. So I'm going to get off now, and I will continue talking. So my name is Nihad Fatah, and I am a Palestinian American who moved to Palestine in 2000. I'm married and I have 3 beautiful children living in a village called Safa, right outside of Ramallah. I've been working with HATD now for 4 years, going on 5 years actually. I think 2006. Yeah, wow, time flies. Working with this amazing organization that helps build capacity and provide obviously financial support to various grantees in the West Bank. Currently, we're working with Yes Theater, who will be presenting today, and they're doing drama therapy in the Hebron area. We're also doing work in Nablus, where we're doing the Stanford Chronic Disease Self-Management Program. They're an organization that works with women and men with diabetes in that area, and then in the refugee camp there also we're doing some work. Currently they're working on developing an app that's using the Stanford model, which is a 6-session model which helps people with chronic disease manage their illness. So they're currently working on an app with the support of our other West Bank grantees, which includes Yes Theater and Diabetes Palestine, to help engage both the participants and the leaders to continue to work together even when they're not in session. So this is under development, and we're very excited about it. It'll be running soon. The other group we're working with is Diabetes Palestine. They're stationed in Hebron, but the current work, and they also have a clinic in Gaza. And currently we're working with type 1 diabetics in Gaza, youth, and they're leading this amazing program, also the Stanford Chronic Self-Disease Self-Management. In Gaza, because of COVID right now, we're doing most of the work there on WhatsApp. And it's been a successful program so far. We've reached over 150 children and their families. So we're very excited about that. Anyways, I want to go back to Yes Theater. This is a group that we're going to be presenting with today in a few minutes. But before we get into that, I would like Norbert to share a video that we have that talks a bit about what's going on in Susia, in one of the towns that Yes Theater is currently working on. And just to give you, it's a 3 minute video about the history of Susia. So if you guys are ready to turn that on, that'd be great.
The Palestinian village of Kirbet Susia is under threat. Israeli officials want to demolish it, saying it's an illegal encampment. Residents and rights groups say Israel is simply trying to make way for more settlements. The village has become a flashpoint in the debate over new settlements in the occupied West Bank, which are considered illegal under international law. Mohammed lives in Kirbet Susia and says he won't leave despite the government issuing a demolition order late last year.
We are going to stay on our land. Even if they demolish, we will stay. We will build, we will stay here. We will die here. Not in Lebanon, not in Syria.
Another resident says the Israelis have been wanting to demolish the village since 1986 to expand a nearby settlement.
There is a decision from an Israeli high court to demolish 7 structures in the village, and we are expecting the Israeli bulldozers to come at any minute.
That settlement is easily seen from Kirbet Susia. Its construction began in 1983, and today it's connected to the Israeli power grid and protected by the military, while this village relies on a few solar panels and well water. A Human Rights Watch report released this year shows, in 2017, the Israeli government demolished 381 Palestinian homes it deemed were built illegally. Nearly 600 Palestinians were left homeless. Human Rights Watch also found that Israel built 2,000 new settlement homes in 2017, an 86% increase on the year before. During a recent visit to the village, Israeli parliament member Dov Kenan of the Arab Joint List Party says he believes Israelis want to annex the village's land.
They are fighting against a political move by Israeli government that is part of a big plan to actually annex big parts of the West Bank, of the occupied West Bank.
But sympathy does not stop demolition. The villagers' lawyers say 20 more buildings are set to be razed. Sarah Balter, TRT World.
So that was just a very short, compressed history of what's going on in Susia. It's been in the news. Senator Feinstein from California has been abdicating for the residents of Susia and the stopping of the demolitions and orders to get rid of that area. Decisions have been made around that area, and the decision was to evacuate all the people living there, but that hasn't been implemented yet. But that, amongst many other areas and villages, Yes Theater is working on and doing work there. So Yes Theater is a drama therapy group, and they do drama therapy in Susia and in Hebron, and the surrounding villages, including Susia. And so we have here online, if you could see Raed, he works with Yes Theater, so he'll be presenting a little bit of the work that they're doing there. And then we also have Suhair, who is one of the beneficiaries, who's going to be speaking with us shortly. And then we have Sahar. I don't know if she's online, if her video is on, and she's the project manager of this amazing group, and she does great work, and she's amazing and caring and is very supportive. So I'm gonna let this go to Raed. Norbert, if you could please share the screen with the presentation. Marhaba, Raed.
Marhaba, good evening, Nihad. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me all?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. You're welcome. First of all, let me say hi to everybody and to my colleague Margaret, also from the other side. Okay, I'm going to talk about Yes Theater and about this project. I am going to pretend not reading, but I am going to read. So sorry if I am a little slow. With the aim of improving mental health, psychosocial sessions, therapeutic
Next
drama.
video. Sorry, next slide. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Psychosocial sessions, therapeutic drama were carried out using drama and theater tools with the children, women, and youth, girls, of course, as well as examining the needs of the beneficiaries, the trainers, carried out a set of exercises in order to get acquainted with the participants, break down barriers, build trust and professional relationships. YT worked with the beneficiaries to raise the level of hope and positivity, enhancing self-confidence, discovering internal capabilities in order to face life's problems and finding solutions to them, focusing on future goals, relationships, boundaries, increasing the level of motivation and self-esteem during each session. And I would like to talk about a point that, of course, we put a suitable plan for each group, for each project, for each place, because each group, each place, each project has a different nature, let me say, a different goals. So according to the goal, according to the kind of participants, we put a plan. And the main role of all these activities, as the rest of Yes Theater projects, is to give hope to people, to give hope and to tell them, if you can't deal with the situation you have, so you have to know how to deal with this situation. Okay, the sessions were a space for psychological debriefing for the beneficiaries, and also a space for creativity and time investment in light of the home quarantine period and the inability of children to go to school or anywhere that helps them diffuse their energies. Many tools were used in the debriefing sessions, such as drama games, developmental movement exercises, therapeutic music, drawing, therapeutic stories, and this is important. As games, relaxation exercises, and creating a safe place. And when we use theater techniques, this is very important. And the first thing we tell the participants that you can, in theater, on stage, here in this hall, in this place, you have the freedom to say and do anything you cannot say or do at home, at street, in the school, or in your job even. So theater and this project specifically gives you space to do everything you wish to do, to say everything you want to say, and there is nothing wrong. Everything you say is right. Okay. The targeted areas of the project are Hebron, the old city of Hebron, Susia, we saw in the movie, in the video, Khursa, Dura, Ben Naim, Dahriya, and Beit Umar. Okay, the number of groups that were implemented during the year and a half, which is the period of the project, are 31 groups, divided as follows: women's groups, 20 to 45 years old and over, 14 groups; children groups, males, females, from 10 to 15 years old, 14 groups. Youth groups from 16 to 18 years old, 3 groups. So the number of sessions that were implemented with the beneficiaries are 570 sessions. It's the next page, Nihad. 570 sessions. Thank you. Number of individuals and groups supervision sessions with Petra Barghouthi are 220 sessions. The number of evaluation sessions, pre and post and focus groups from the number of evaluation sessions, pre and post and focus groups forms implemented by psychologist Sahar Sabrei are 66 sessions, and the number of beneficiaries from the sessions are 397 beneficiaries. I told you I pretend not reading, but I have to. Okay.
You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Individual and group supervision sessions with Petra Barghouthi to discuss the nature of the target groups. We always say, as we say in theater, we have a material. The group is a material, the group of either children, women, youth, teenagers, whatever. It's like a material you have. If you want to know how to deal with this material, you have to know what is contained of. So the focus groups is one of these methods to know what kind of groups we have. Okay, the needs and mechanisms for dealing with the groups about the initial information, the descriptive analysis of the groups, and the preparation of general plans. Filling out the pre and post forms and analyzing them, focus groups, Zoom meetings on prevention and protection methods in light of the corona pandemic. Yeah, field visits and follow-up of groups files, sending stationery and sterilization materials to groups, coordination and networking, visits with the local community, institutions, official correspondence and books, follow up on sending monthly plans and monthly reports. We go to the last page, and you already put it. Yeah, thank you. Okay, meeting with parents, institutions, follow up the transfer system provide. Psychological counseling and transfer system is very important here in Yes Theater when we not only in this project, in the other projects also, when we have a specific case that we are not this specialized to deal with, so we transfer it to the specialized organization or institution or side. Okay, implementation of awareness meetings related to mental health during the corona pandemic by psychologist Sahar Sabrei, providing consultation with the groups that have been working with them last year during the period of closure and emergency by the trainers in order to provide support and assistance to them. Additional activities we have making posters and awareness leaflets on mental health topics in light of the corona pandemic. Yani, and of course, we must talk about some difficulties that we have when we make such projects, from coordinating to finding a suitable place to work in, to the difficulties in the roads and entering school. This is something sometimes we have problem with. Military checkpoints from time to time, from place to place. يعني and usually when we transfer a case, we would like, and we tried, and it's and we find it good and useful to deal with Al Center for Mental Health. This is a good center that we deal with, and he knows how to deal with some cases that we cannot deal with. That's it. I think. I hope I didn't pass my time, right?
No, you did great. Thank you, Raed. Norbert, can you go down? Oh, sorry, there was a few more other. Sorry, go ahead, Raed.
Sorry again.
No, thank you very much. That was perfect. I just
Thank
wanted
you.
there was more photos. If you go down some more down the slide,
Yes.
Dr. Norbert.
Yes. Yes.
So this is just different. There's a picture here of work that they did in Susia outside, and then this is some of the artwork that that the children put together. There's a picture of Sahar over there, who's the amazing coordinator or manager of the program in Hebron. And then there's some youth, some young children also taking part in some of the therapy and drama sessions that they have. Can you go down to the next slide? And then there's here, this is the famous balloon one. I think there's different games that they play with the balloons, and it's a way to help the women in these particular groups bond. And again, some more artwork, and I think there's one last one. Is that the last one, Norbert? Oh, there we go. And then again here, just some more work together with children and other different games that they play during the sessions. So overall, Yes Leader pretty much basically provides support, psychological support to the people living in and around Hebron. They have some expertise around some of this, but as Raed said, if there are cases that are that need further assistance, they then refer out to different groups. So one of the participants of the group who's online, her name is Suhair. I think she wanted to talk just for a few minutes about her experience with the group. Suhair, are you on? Are you still there?
Yes, yes.
Oh, hi. We have her name
evening.
as Aziz, but she's not Aziz. She's really Suhair.
It's my name also.
Oh, they got Sahar too. Sahar's on there too. Okay, Suhair, if you'd like to please speak just for a few minutes about your experience.
Okay,
And,
yes.
Thank you. And please let us know where you're from in Hebron.
I am from Bet Omar. I am a student at Berzet University. I am a member of the Union of Palestinian Women Committees. The training was important and very useful on the psychological level in terms of learning the strategies related to psychological protection and coping with the stress. I have benefited from several meetings, part of which was related to the relationship. The concept of the change. I learned from this meeting how we do not raise the ceiling of our expectations, and that the relationships don't reach the limit of because there is a loss and a loss. How do we distinguish between a supportive relationship and a frustrated relationship? That had a role in helping me to adoption and learning a psychological immunity. I also benefited from breathing exercises to learn how to relax during the stress, and sound and body games that are important to in eliminating and discharging negative energy. And drawing has a great role in our sense of psychological well-being. the story. I take about the story of the broken jar was helpful for me to accept my weaknesses and learn to replace negative thoughts with positive ones and focus on strength.
Thank you, Suhair. That was great. It sounds like you've learned a lot. It sounds like you learned some breathing techniques and using stories to help you deal with some of the stressors. Is that correct?
Again, I don't understand.
It's okay. That's fine. Thank you so much. I think thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. Just to wrap it up, it sounded like she was talking about how she was benefiting from the program and learning breathing exercises and using storytelling as a way to help her deal with the life stressors that she is presented with. So I think so for that we can move on. I think I'd like to open it up, I think, for questions. If anybody has some questions for myself, for Raed.
So I'll just make an introductory comment and then read one of the questions. There's one question so far, and we welcome additional questions. I guess in a way, what you can heard from the contradistinction or the challenge. You saw the movie of Susia. The situation is rather difficult, to put it in a generous manner. What to do? There was a word that was used during the presentation from Yes Theater that I think is absolutely key, and that is hope. So there is an effort to give hope to these people, which in the peace building parlance is called resilience. And so I very much am moved by these type of efforts. I want to emphasize that in all the grantees that we fund, these are initiatives that are proposed by grantees themselves. These are initiatives that are proposed by grantees themselves. And as much as possible, our philosophy is to work with the grantee. If we evaluate that a grantee can do the work that they're proposing, we might suggest some specific ways of them to do it, but we very much work with them and with their approach, and we want to strengthen those community groups that are making the proposal. There's a question for the people from Yes Theater. Are there adult men's groups? And if yes, can you see differences in themes or subjects that are brought up by men versus women? And if no adult men's groups, why?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question very well. I had the call.
Maybe you want to translate it?
No, I think
Sorry?
so. They're asking if there is if there's men in the groups.
The sound is so
Okay.
low, I can't hear you.
Okay, well,
Okay.
maybe you can answer, Nihad.
I can. So there isn't actually. There are no men's group, and the target group for Yes Theater are women and youth, and which they have teenagers. They have teenage young men that are that attend and school age children. But the adult men aren't involved in any of the programming. And it's because that's not their target audience. It's not because they don't want to, but their mission there is to work with women and children.
Before I go to the, I just want to make a comment.
Sorry.
Which is,
I can't. Can I add something?
sure.
Please.
Please.
Okay. First, I cannot hear you very well. I have a problem with the sound, but I think you can hear me. You mentioned, sir, the word hope. And I always say a man without hope is a dangerous man. And this is from my experience working with children, teenagers, and youth along 24 years now. If this child or this teenager or this man or even a girl or a woman, if he doesn't have hope of life, if he hasn't something to live for, so he becomes dangerous. How? That he becomes dangerous of at himself and at the others. He may hurt himself by trying to end his life, and I faced many cases like this, or to end his life by hurting the other side. And you understand me, I think. So our mission, our first mission and main mission in Yes Theater is to give hope for these children, these people, these teenagers, to tell them that you are valuable. God didn't create you for nothing. God created you for a goal, for a wisdom. So you have something in this life, and you have a mission in this life. If you don't know, we can help you discover the thing you have and you don't know about. So this comes with the drama exercises, with the debriefing exercises, movement, acting, role playing, puppets even, and we do our best to let him find that he discovers that he really has something. And we succeeded a lot with many of them, and many of them are making a progress in their education, in their schools, in their jobs later, in their lives. They got married, they are successful people in the community. So this is our main mission, as I said in Yes Theater, is to give hope for people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raed.
That's very helpful.
نهاد ممكن أحكي شيء. أنا علا أول إشي مساء الخير، آسفة إنه يعني أنا مش رح أشارك بالإنجليزي، بس إذا فهمت صح إنه كانوا بيسألوا إذا بنشتغل إحنا مع الرجال أو مع الشباب اللي هو فئة الذكور، إذا هيك فهمت صح؟
الشباب الكبار زلام مش بالضبط سألوا هذا بالضبط.
إنه أوكي، بس أنا هلأ حاليا في عندي جروب هو فيه شباب عمرهم من 20 ل 24 سنة يعني هم متفقين مع هلأ أنا بعطي جروب طلاب جامعة، فهم في بنات وفي شباب، يعني في عندي لحد عمر 23 24 عام.
الشباب لحالهم ولا مع
لا موجودين مع بعض لأنهم هم أصلا الفريق بيعرفوا يعني بيعرفوا بعض يعني معرفة، ولكن إنه عملنا جروب مع بعض.
يلا حابب الترجم. So that was a counselor from Yes Theater who actually wanted to say that she has one group that she's working with where she's got men from the ages 20 to 25. And it's a co-ed group, actually. There's also women involved in that group. So I was actually wrong. I'm sorry. There is a group. There is a group of men that they work with. Go ahead, Norbert.
Yeah, so this is very, it was very moving to hear, the different stories, and again, goes to the heart of the kind of work that we try to do. I think we've heard a little bit about some of the positive outcomes that have been alluded to. I will write to everybody a little bit more detail about some of the outcomes that have been summarized, and I'll put that in the email, the follow-up email. I want to just answer one or two more questions. Do you hear from parents of children who participate on the impact it has had for the children?
Raed, do you want to answer that really quick?
Yes, please. Okay, first of all, when we started working theater in 1997, until maybe 2000, 2002, it was almost impossible to have a group of boys and girls together. It was impossible to have groups of females and males together. There is still a party in our city in Hebron with a preserved city. كيف بنقول مدينة محافظة. Okay. Who believe that boys and males and females working together is taboo, haram. It's not allowed. It's forbidden. It is an Islamic parties and it's a big part in Hebron city. So with the time when they saw the results of our working with their children, that their children became more self-confident, have more ability to discuss and talk, and say, and they have the courage to say no for things that they don't like, yes for things they like, etc., etc., etc. They started to believe in our work. I have faced many parents, or especially fathers, along my working in theater, and I try to remember. Okay, one of the stories, a man, he had a girl, in my group, and one day after 2 or 3 meetings, he came shouting and cursing, "What are you doing with my girl? What are you teaching her? You are teaching her how to work with boys. We are teaching her the Western habits." I said, okay, calm down. You please come and sit and watch. If you like what we do with your daughter, you can allow her to continue. If you don't, you take her and go home, simply. And he came and he watched, and slowly, at the end of the session, he apologized to me, and he talked to his daughter. "Stay in this group, my daughter. I want you to continue with them." And he thanked me and left. And I have tens of examples like this.
That's great.
Because they don't know. They usually send their children and they don't know what is going on there. But when they hear from outside or from somebody or from some who that they are they are doing 1, 2, 3, 4. How can you allow your child or your boy or girl go? And now at this case, he comes and tries to know what is going and what we do with his children. And when he knows, he allows them to stay with us. And this is
آسف صار مشان الوقت. I know بنقدر نحكي. So thank you so much. I know we're on a bit of limited time, but that's a great story. That's nice to hear that, because we need to change some of the way that people view drama and drama therapy, or therapy in general. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody who's presented thus far. And now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Aziz Abu Sarah. And I'm going to ask the real Aziz Abu Sarah to stand up. No, I was just joking. There's several Aziz Abu Sarahs that are on the line. And I met Aziz a number of years ago, at least 5 years ago. And as we were trying to figure out how to move forward with respect to having an annual study tour, because while this is wonderful, what you're seeing, but it really is only a drop in the bucket of getting a flavor of being in Susia, of experiencing and engaging with some of the leaders of some of these groups. That's really very much what we like to see. Unfortunately, we were not able to, because of the COVID pandemic last year, to do that. But there is a person who started a tour company that is truly remarkable, a Palestinian activist who I'm lucky to know and with whom Healing Across the Divides has worked with over the last years. And he is the founder of MEJDI Tours. He will tell you a little bit about himself as to his journey that resulted in MEJDI Tours, and we'll tell you about the study tour itself that will be occurring in September. So will the real Aziz Abu Sarah please stand up, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, thank you. I won't physically stand up because then you won't see me, but I appreciate being here. And as I'll share my screen. I'm not gonna use a long presentation, but I wanted to say a couple of things. Let's hope I'm sharing the right thing. Yeah. I actually wanted to start by just for a minute, just appreciating what we've heard so far and using maybe a couple of my experiences into explaining why what we've heard is so important. So I grew up in Jerusalem. And as I'm listening to what being said, I wonder how much this would have helped me if I got any of these programs. And unfortunately, I didn't. So you're seeing this photo of myself and my older brother. This is when I was a little kid. My older brother, Taysir, was killed in the first Intifada when he was 19 years old. I was 10 at the time. And I didn't have any therapy. I didn't have any counseling, didn't have any possibilities of really processing that. And that's the case for most Palestinian children. And when you don't have the ability to process that post-trauma or continuous trauma, I guess, stays with you forever, and it affects your life. It still affects my life today. I'm fortunate that I did get some help. It took 20 years later until I did that. But I realized how much I needed it. And I think when we look at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the occupation, Palestinians living in the West Bank, this is area that often not focused on. For 8 years, for me, all I thought about after my brother was killed was revenge. And I think if we talk about moving, actually, Raed, you mentioned a man without hope is a dangerous man. And I'm thinking that was the reality in my own life. So I just wanted to say thank you for what you do. And you cannot think how important, you cannot imagine how important this work is and how important it is to spread so much more than where it is today. So I'm talking about travel, so it's a bit of a different thing, but not really, because just like I mentioned, that when my brother was killed, I was very angry, very bitter, and it took me many years to overcome and realize that not only do we need to talk to each other, but we need to work together. And that's what, Norbert, you're doing with Healing Across the Divides, and Nihad and everybody in your work. It's not only a dialogue, and often that's the conversation, but it's figuring out how we can come together to make a difference on the ground, and how we can create a reality that is different. Martin Luther King Jr. said, men often hate each other because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they cannot communicate, and they cannot communicate because they are separated. And this quote in some ways embodies the heart of MEJDI Tours, a company I co-founded with a Jewish American friend of mine. That's something very rare. You won't find these kind of enterprises between Palestinians and Jews that much, even between Palestinians who hold Israeli citizenship and Israeli Jews. You won't find many of those. Actually, I know maybe of a handful of those kind of projects. And what we wanted to create is a company that doesn't just take tours and just see the sites, but rather understand what's happening there, travel between the different sites, overcome the fear, communicate with people, which is something rarely, if ever, is happening on tours. And that's how we came to design together the trip we run with Healing Across the Divides. Is how do we get people to not just go there to see the holy sites and so on, which, yeah, that's fine, and we should do some of those activities, and we do it, but also meeting with the people there. And I remember my first experience meeting with tourists. I was a little kid in Jerusalem. I went to school in the Aqsa Mosque, and tons of tourists would come. And they would always take my photo. And you can tell from this photo, I was a little cute kid. So no wonder they wanted to take my photo. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. I liked the attention. I didn't mind them coming and like getting their cameras and getting close to me and taking all these clicks. I thought I'm like the king of the world. I'll pose for them and thinking I'm a model and all of that. But what I hated is none of them would stop for a minute to talk to me. And when you think of travel in the region, for sure, in the world, unfortunately, at large, this is a reality of we go see people, but we don't communicate with them. We don't understand them. We don't have a conversation with them. And what that does is just entrenches stereotypes that we're having with people about them. and it's local and it's international. I mean, Israelis and Palestinians have the same reality. I like taking Israelis to the West Bank because often, what Raed shared now is stuff 90%, maybe more, of Israelis I know have no idea about. You're talking about Susia, and yet Israelis who live 15 minutes away from Susia have no idea about those house demolitions. I've had stories where Israelis ask me what kind of currency we need to get before going to the West Bank, which is crazy because we use the same currency. Things that are so simple, and yet we have such a break of communications, and that translates also to travelers who come, go see everything and leave and have no idea of realities underground, don't meet anybody, and not realizing, actually, I'll skip that, not realizing that what can happen in these trips is transforming that, is really building connections, building relationships, understanding the stories. And you see the group before meeting with the rabbi, there's a group meeting with the Hud Nasser in Bethlehem and hearing about his farm, hearing about his story. And so on the trip with Healing Across the Divides, what you do is you meet with many of the projects that the organization supports. You get to understand the work they're doing on the ground, but you get also to understand the context of the whole issue. You also get to have dinners with families, have conversations, not all heavy, and it's not all, oh my goodness, this sounds like we're gonna get bored through the whole conversation. Not true. I would say if anything, it's exactly the opposite, because you get to meet people, eat with them, talk with them, sometimes even we'll have music and dance with them. You get to have, learn about the local art, local realities, and you get to have two tour guides, one Israeli and one Palestinian, co-guiding with you the whole time. So you're having a conversation across the whole time. And even when you go to holy sites or to leisure sites, fun places, you get to hear about it from multiple perspectives. If you are at Al-Aqsa Mosque, you get to hear what the Israeli have to say, you get to hear what the Palestinian has to say about it. And it's not always political. Sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's about music, sometimes about food, sometimes it's about how we see things and simple stuff. I'll give you an example. In one introduction once, the Palestinian guide is speaking in Jerusalem, and he tells people on the tour, they ask where to go to get, shawarma, falafel, things like that. And he says, well, you go to downtown Jerusalem, which is Salah ad-Din Street, and there you will find everything you need. And the Israeli guide goes, that's interesting. When I hear the word downtown Jerusalem, I think of Ben Yehuda Street. So if I would have said the same, I would have said, go to downtown Jerusalem, but I would have meant totally a different area. And these nuances of understanding reality is impossible to do without having this kind of guiding structure of having one Israeli and one tour guide. So it's not all just about politics and about conflict, but it's also about just understanding the place, understanding the, I'll tell you, I guided with this guy, Hussam, for example, and we guided in the old city together. Hussam comes from Muslim family, so do I. But he's from Bethlehem. He went to a Christian Catholic school. I went to also Christian, but Protestant school. And I joined him once on a tour. We went to the Holy Sepulchre. And he started talking about the Holy Sepulchre being, in Christian tradition, the site of where Jesus was crucified. And then I interjected and said, oh, but there's another narrative, which is the Protestant narrative, which means it's not the Holy Sepulchre. It's actually in Garden Tomb. And the two of us, for the next 10 minutes, argued about where Jesus was crucified. So you get two people from a Muslim families arguing about these two narratives. And the only time you can have, and it's not about arguments, just debating, having different perspectives, the only way you can have that is by creating a reality where you talk to people from different backgrounds. You talk into different projects like the one Healing Across the Divides doing in different communities. You hear the challenges, you hear the positives about each community, the things that are going well, the things that are not going well. And again, like I said, it doesn't mean you don't have fun. You can have all the fun, but still leave moved and connected. There's an Arab traveler called Ibn Battuta. He says, travel makes you speechless, but then it turns you into a storyteller. And I wonder how many people go to Jerusalem, spend 10 days, go all through the country, see all the archaeological sites, blah, 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 and then come back home not having a story to tell. And one thing I can promise you, you will have if you come on a trip like this, you'll have many, many stories to tell, just like the one we heard today. And I'll end with just saying my favorite probably poem is a poem written by an Israeli author named Yehuda Amichai. And he was talking about travel. And he says, once I sat and stepped by a gate at David's Tower. I placed my 2 heavy baskets at my side. A group of tourists was standing around with their guide and I became their target. You see that man with the basket? Just right of his head, there's an arch from the Roman period. Just right of his head. I say to myself, redemption will come only if their tour guide tells them, you see that arch from the Roman period? It's not important. But next to it, left and down a bit, there sits a man who's bought fruit and vegetables for his family. Now, there's a small part I disagree. I like the Roman arch. I love archaeology. I actually studied it. It is important to me, but it is not more important than the people who live there. And so if there's one way I would characterize the partnership we've had with Healing Across the Divides is that we made what's important, which is the people who live there, the stories of the people who are there, and most importantly, coming back with ideas, concrete ideas of what can we do to help. And that's too often is missing. You can go to a place and leave and forget all about it. On trips like this, you can't do that. You will go, you will connect instead of just collecting photos, you will actually connect with people, collect memories that will stay with you forever and ideas of how you can spread that work, tell people about it, be involved in it. And it's relationships that stay with you forever. And I know people who've traveled with me there years ago who still connected to the people they've met over in Jerusalem or in the West Bank or in Israel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aziz. I would just, in the last 30, 45 seconds that we have, I want to just highlight some of those stories. As you heard today, Yes Theater will also give you hope. And that's one of the unique aspects of the Healing Across the Divide study tour. Though it's good to have hope and it's good to have the staff who you've met, I do want to highlight especially that the work that we do is very much complemented by the many, many volunteers who work with Healing Across the Divides. And I can tell you right now that the Healing Across the Divide study tour would not have started without a whole group of people, but I want to give a shout out in particular to Sarah Weinberger. I'm not sure if she's on, but I just want everybody to know about her. She's an amazing woman. So in conclusion, it's 1 o'clock. I always like to start on time and end on time. I hope you've heard today a little bit of hope. These are very challenging circumstances as you saw in the video. 2 amazing staff, both Nihad and Marganit. I'm so lucky to work with them. Thank you so much, Aziz, for making it the story tragically personal and important. Thank you for being with us. I'll be sending you a copy of the recording and I will respond to more of the questions in writing. Thank you again. Bye-bye, everybody.